Skillshare is a great place to learn new skills and pursue the work you love. What's up guys, and for the last few months I've been working with Concept Creator to design a smartphone that is not only beastly in terms of specification, insane to look at, but also probably the most feature-rich gaming phone on the planet. And this isn't just us pulling specifications out of thin air. This is a well-considered smartphone, and one that you could realistically imagine being on a store shelf. I mean, it will cost you $1,200, but you're going to start to see why in just a moment. This is a mouthful. Display-wise, we've gone for a Quad HD Plus 2960 by 1440, glare-free 120Hz AMOLED display. And we kind of worked together on this and we thought all of these things are important when it comes to the end output. If you want to play games, you want a vivid display, you want as high a frame rate as possible, and also you want to be able to enjoy that content no matter what environment you're sitting in. The screen is basically edge to edge on both sides. We have practically zero side bezels. We've got a small chin on the top and the bottom of the phone, but that is for practical reasons only. If we didn't have that, if the screen went all the way around on all four sides, we might have to relocate things like the speakers, the camera module, the proximity sensor, the earpiece, and so on and so forth. And as we've seen with Doogi's slide screen concept phone, this can introduce some impracticalities of its own. And all of this is going to result in a still hugely impressive and pretty unheard of 92% screen to body ratio. Unnecessary, maybe, but the key thing with gaming is immersion, and the less barriers you have between your eyes and the experience you're trying to enjoy, the more lost in it you can become. So the idea is, the larger the display compared to the rest of the body of the phone, the more enjoyable it's going to be. Speaking of immersion, we've got quad channel audio. So in each of the four corners of this phone, there is a speaker module. So think what Red is doing with their Hydrogen 1 phones. They are building an algorithm which is going to allow the phone to convert 2.1 or stereo input into 5.1 or 4.1 output. This phone would do something similar. You'd be able to hear different sounds coming from all four corners of the phone, which could help you locate enemies if you're playing a shooting game, just by hearing the sounds of their shots. And these speakers would be tuned so we could reach roughly the output volume of the Razer phone, but at the same time with more immersion, because instead of just a 2.1 stereo output, we've got 4.1 multi-surround sound. The battery's got to be large too, so we've gone with 4,200 mAh, just a fraction more than the Huawei Mate 10, which is currently one of the leaders in 2017 battery life. And this is going to allow us about 7 hours of continuous gaming, or about 2 days of conservative use of the phone. Of course, we can't just stick in the best speakers ever on a phone and this gigantic battery and not expect to make a compromise. But here's the thing, when you design a smartphone for a very niche audience, you can also pick the sacrifices you want to make so that they least affect the audience you're trying to build it for. So in this case, for the particular gamer audience we're trying to build this phone for, we've gone for thickness and price. Price we'll come back to, but this is going to be a pretty chunky phone at 8.8mm. So I think a lot of smartphone manufacturers strongly underestimate just how hardcore the gamer audience is. Razer is one of the few exceptions to that. And so by building a phone to really fit this niche, you're making people's choice very clear. If they aren't in that niche and they want a slim, svelte phone with good levels of performance, then they obviously should look elsewhere. But if someone falls into that niche, you are building a device that is so well suited to that group of people that there isn't even a close substitute. Okay, so looking around the phone, you can see it's taking a little bit of visual inspiration from the Huawei Mate 10 Pro. Because low-key, I think this is one of the most subtly sophisticated and beautiful phones that 2017 actually produced. We're using the Huawei Mate 10's iconic stripe to highlight the camera module, but in order to make it a little bit more aggressive, to better appeal to the demographic we're targeting, we've taken a little bit of inspiration from the Pixel 2 phones. So we swapped out the material so that this particular stripe is now glossy glass, which makes quite a stark contrast with the rest of the smartphone's body. Speaking of which, that is going to be inspired by the Huawei P10. As you probably know, I'm a huge fan of the hyper diamond cut finish we saw on this phone, so using something similar on the device we're creating now is going to mean it feels premium because it's made of aluminium, but also it's going to stay grippy and your hands aren't going to get too clammy on it. Alright, so based off Android 8.1, the UI, as you probably guessed, is going to be very much gamer-esque. It's going to feature aggressive but futuristic kind of fonts, wallpapers featuring explosions and lots of crystal shards all over the place, a little bit cliche, but at the same time, this is what works. Alright, so the big question, we've got the aesthetics nailed down, we've got a lot of the features nailed down, but how are we going to power this? How do we power 3D games to run at a Quad HD Plus resolution at 120 frames per second? The answer lies in the Snapdragon 845, with an overclocked GPU. So this new chip, which was only announced a couple of months ago and hasn't actually been released in any final form phone as of yet, is about 30% more powerful than the Snapdragon 835, already pretty capable in itself. The graphics too have some sort of similar performance boost, and so if we overclock those with sufficient cooling present within the phone, we could be looking at maybe 40% graphics boost. And using this particular system on a chip comes with a couple of benefits of its own. This supports Qualcomm's Quick Charge 4 Plus, which is far faster than Qualcomm's Quick Charge 3, which most modern-day 2017 flagship phones are currently using. So you run out of battery, you're back up in no time. It's got the X20 LTE modem, so even faster and even more reliable data speeds, which is only really going to be that much use to you if you're playing multiplayer games on the go and you need solid data connection, but it's all part of the package. And of course, as with every new generation of chips, it is even more efficient. So for an equivalent output in terms of visuals, you're looking at about a 20% reduction in energy usage, and therefore preserved battery. Details on how much RAM this chip supports have not actually been released yet, but our general rule for building this smartphone would be up till 12 GB, use as much RAM as it supports. So if it turns out it only supports 8 gigs, use 8 gigs. If it turns out it supports 12 gigs, use 12. Now this is partly because RAM is not really very expensive right now and wouldn't add too much to the phone's price, but also because it's going to give you a lot of flexibility. With this much RAM, the phone could almost partition 2 to 4 GB just for background tasks, and you could save 8 gigs for the task at hand. Alternatively, it could mean you could have 2 to 3 large-scale games running at the same time and flick between them and resume exactly where you were. Alright, so that is the phone. It almost makes you wish there were better quality games available for phones, so this could really take advantage of them. But if the Nintendo Switch has taught us anything, it's that portable console quality gaming is not dead. Someone just needs some sort of breakthrough, and I think people will flock to it. Alright, so as I said, this video was sponsored by Skillshare. Now, this is basically an online learning community. It's got more than 17,000 classes in design, photo, and more. The premium membership gives you unlimited access to the high-quality classes from experts in their fields, so you can improve your skills, unlock new opportunities, and do the work you love. For example, I tried the DSLR photography class, and through watching this series of videos, I learned how to better frame my photos, as well as adjust exposure to get the right shot. It's also not an expensive service. You can get it for $10 a month if you get an annual subscription, and the first 3 months for 99 cents. Anyway guys, the link is in the description below, so be sure to check it out. My name is Aaron, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'm signing out.